Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Ask an Old Mog, where you ask the questions and I try to answer them and do it in a way that's interesting. And today we're back with my sweatshirt because it's cold where I'm living, and I thought it would be fun to bring the sweatshirt back. You know, that's just the way it is. You're getting the sweatshirt. Here we are, and I'm excited to say that we actually have a question to look into. So let's dive right in. Today's question comes from Daniel. He says, "Hey guys, quick question. What are the best abilities for equipment? I mean, do we want percent attack, percent defense, magic spirit, auto heal, attack defense auto boost? Is it good, for example, to put 40% attack, 10% HP, and 10% MP?" Oh, that's a big question. So it's not really so quick, but thank you so much, Daniel, for bringing it to us. Um, this is actually very relevant because the equipment enhancement event is going on right now, Steel Castle, or what other people call Item World, and so it's a good time to ask this question and be thinking about, what items and abilities you want to put on those items. So let's look at my answer here. You want to aim for the maximum you can get on relevant stats for the unit you plan to use it on. But there are a few exceptions to that, and a few things are going to help you decide ooh, do I really want to rerun this weapon again if I have whatever percentage on there, and it's going to depend on a lot of different factors. And so to help us with that, I want you to look at a couple of key points. Um, First and foremost, the stat bonus cap for any stat that we have available to us in the game right now is 400%. And you hit that 400% when the stat turns blue. We'll take a look at that in just a second. And that's going to pull in percentages from either the unit's passives, any vision cards they equip. Some espers give bonus stats based on certain weapons or just flat bonuses based on their nodes that you've unlocked. And then also different ability materia. Now, some of these abilities are just going to give you the bonuses you're looking for, and some of them are going to provide better auto buffs than the auto buffs that you can pick up in item world. So we'll talk about that in just a moment. And then the other thing you want to ask yourself is the unit in question that I'm planning on putting this weapon on, are they going to be using one weapon or two weapons? And the reason that's important is if they're dual wielding, if they can equip two weapons that you can enhance in item world, you can go ahead and not worry quite so much about maxing out both weapons. You can just kind of do one really good one and one kind of average one, or kind of two average ones, depending on a lot of different factors of what you're going to be equipping on that unit. But if they have two, it's going to be a lot easier for you to hit that cap. With a good two-handed weapon, it's a lot more important to aim for the rare abilities and the high bonus stats so that you get the maximum benefit out of that one equipment slot, since they're only going to be equipping one weapon. So to help us with that, we're going to take a look at the game here. And I've just got a couple of units thrown together on my screen that I think I was running those in the shard dungeon when we had the shard dungeon. So we'll look at my units here and notice none of them have any equipment. So we'll just do Sephiroth because it's Sephiroth. Let's talk about Sephiroth. So as you can see, none of his stats are blue. All the flashing lights are they're green there, which means I have not hit the stat cap on anything. And obviously his one of his most important stats is going to be his attack stat, and so we're going to take a look at that. If you click on details and then you swipe your finger to the left so that you get everything going to the right, I can see that he has a current attack stat with nothing equipped of 200%, right? So no abilities, no vision cards, nothing, and he has just an inherent 200%. So that's just his passive stats, stat boost for attack that he just gets just for being Sephiroth at that level, at that rarity, whatever. And so he just has 200%. So we know that since we can get to 400, we need to get another 200% in there somewhere. And sometimes you can trigger those passives by just looking at what equipment you need to put on to trigger some of these passives. You can click on them. So if he has one, okay, let's see here. If I click on this trait, looks like, I get an additional 140% just by equipping a katana. So that's going to take me from 200 to 340, which means at that point I would only need an additional 60%. So let's try and put on any old katana, right? Not even his specific katana. We'll just put on a regular katana, one that preferably I have not upgraded yet. Let's find one. I could probably do this way. Do this the easier way. any katana, preferably one that does not have any passives on it. Here we go. Right? So that brought me up to 350 just by putting on this katana. Now this one happens to have attack plus 10% on it. So, 350, I only need 50% more to get to that 400. But obviously Sephiroth's not going to use this katana ideally. Ideally, you're going to put his good katana on right here. Right? And notice I've got on here attack plus 15%, HP plus 10%, and attack plus 10%. So he's going to get the his unit passive plus the 25 to get us to 365 out of 400. Now, ideally, I could have gone and rerun it a couple of times to try and get the maximum. The maximum on katana is going to be about 20% higher than that, 22% higher than that. And that's still not going to be quite at 400. So I would have to pick up another little bit somewhere. But I don't really care. And that's because I'm going to be equipping him with a vision card. I'm going to be equipping him with an Esper, whatever, something that's going to pick up that extra little bit. So I only need, at this point, 35% more. If I'm going to go into his vision cards, and I'll just grab a vision card. I don't have his vision card yet, but I'll go ahead and grab Lara's vision card because it has innate on it 50%, right? I've already hit the stat cap. So I didn't really even need to rerun that sword in item world to get more because I only needed a little bit more to get to the maximum cap. So I could go back and rerun it again and again and again if I wanted to. But in this case, having a little bit of a HP is not the end of the world, and 25% is still pretty good because between that and the vision card, I usually run that one or White Dragon Ling's vision card. That's going to get me to the cap. So that's just really important to kind of keep in mind is how am I gonna piece together that 400%? If you are only using one weapon, it's obviously harder. So you kind of want to get high percents. I try to go at least 25 or 30%. If you get the rare ability, that's really easy to kind of do. But not always. It just kind of depends. But usually you want to try and get that because another example would be Tifa. Who can equip two weapons, and we'll go ahead and pull up fists here. Because why not? I can put 2 fists on her. Oh my goodness, what was I looking at? Fists here. I'll just put these 2. I still haven't hit the stat cap, but just by putting on those 2, I'm already at 310 out of 400. So it's a lot smaller of a gap to try and get to by equipping 2 weapons. I have an extra item slot to play with, so there's that. So, the next point that I want to talk about is that you don't always need extra HP because of tanks. You might have resistances, you might have other advanced strategies like using a dodge build or mirage tanking or something like that. And so having extra HP percent is not always important. And frankly, the regen abilities that you can pick up in item world are not generally worth it very much. You're going to get better regen from having a healer on your team. You're going to get better regen from equipping an item or an ability that has regen built into it. It's just going to it's not going to be worth it. Some units actually even have better regen that's innate, to their kit, and you don't need to worry about it. So I wouldn't do that. It's better to just kind of put more percent for your relevant attack stat or your magic stat, or even your defense or spirit. You can run defensive weapons in the item world too. MP boost though, I generally do like to add on there. So if I had my choice for like an attack unit or a damage unit, I would ideally get 1 or 2 really good boosts for attack or magic, and then if I had to pick between defense, HP, MP, and spirit, I would pick MP in a heartbeat because that's going to let me use my abilities more often. The more MP I have, the more my innate regen or like a skill regen is going to fill me up, and then I can use that. But I still wouldn't pick the innate regen MP abilities because there's just better ways of refilling your MP. Better to just have the percentage, that way you get more value out of the MP regen that you maybe already have in your kit or from some ability or something like that. All right, another thing you want to think about, and that's regen for HP, is that now that zombie is becoming more and more common, weapons that have innate regen will end up killing your unit if you put it on them and then they get afflicted with zombie. So if you put regen on a really good weapon, like if I had put regen on my Sephiroth's katana, then I couldn't bring him to, you know, the current Clash of Wills. I couldn't bring him to the Aemon trial if I was trying to use that, because zombies prevalent in both of those, and his own sword would be damaging him every turn, and that would be no good. So I'd have to equip him with something else, and then his overall effectiveness would really suffer. So you got to be real careful with that one in particular. HP regen can really be damaging if you have a fight with zombie and don't have a way of dealing with it, like me, because I didn't have any lapis or tickets available when Kresnik was out on banner, and I couldn't get Kresnik, and now I'm crying about it because Clash of Wills is kicking my booty. So that said, we're on to the last point: why it's okay to put HP percentage on a weapon, even though I'm saying don't put regen on. And that is saying that, like, sometimes fights get developed that lately have had a tendency to not play by the rules you expect them to. What do I mean by that? You know, we have all these great units that can cover and tank and do mirage and all that fun stuff, and the bosses hit you anyway. That's not to say that there's not ways of dealing with it, but you know, if you're not expecting it, some bosses do things that can really break the rules, so to speak, and do things to you, even though, you know, you've got all these great units that are supposed to help me out with dealing with this stuff, like the current Clash of Wills boss, for example, and the last Clash of Wills boss. Both had attacks that would hit you anyway or couldn't be covered, and so you're going to get damaged no matter what, unless you have a specific way of handling that. You know, there are specific ways of handling it. You know, accuracy down plus, you know, innate dodge bonus is a thing, and that lets you avoid it. But if you didn't know that and didn't go into it thinking, okay, I have to do this specific set of things to avoid this, you know, then having a little bit of extra HP on your weapon is not the end of the world. I just wouldn't prioritize it. You know, if I had to pick between, like I said before, HP or MP, for most characters, I'm going to be picking MP. For tank weapons, you know, like King Bohemian's Greatsword, or Steiner's Greatsword, or Aphmal's Gloves. You know, you want to put some HP on there. You want to put some defense and some spirit so that they can boost those stats. But again, those stats are relevant to those units. You don't need to put HP on, you know, Tifa's the gloves that you're going to use on Tifa, for example. You don't need to. She's there for one thing only, and that's doing water-based limit burst damage. So you don't need to worry about your HP, because most of the time you're going to build a strategy around just letting her survive without taking any damage anyway, and then she's just going to blow it up on her turn, where she's going to do that. So you kind of have to think about what content you're going for and what's going to be generally good for that unit most of the time when you run an item through Item World. But it is also just RNG, right? So, you know, you might get the unit or the abilities you want, you might not. You might have to run it a whole bunch of times to get what you want, and that's kind of the way RNG works, right? So let's get back to the question and see if we answered it. So again, is it better to have attack, defense, magic, spirit, auto boost, auto heal, you know, whatever? Is 40% attack, 10% HP, 10% MP good? I think it is, especially if you're talking about a gun. And I have a feeling, you know, a sneaking suspicion that you are talking about Lara Croft. So just to give you an example, I'm going to go ahead and pull up my Lara Croft and my gun that I have equipped on her, and let's take a look. So this is what I ended up running on her. So I do have the attack 40, I do have attack plus 12, and look at that, MP plus 15%. And I ran that a while ago when Item World first came out, so I didn't, like, you know, run that specifically just to prove a point. Like, that's kind of like how I tend to build weapons, especially two-handed weapons. I obviously want to pick up the 40% if you can get it. For a two-handed gun, you're gonna need all that you can get into one item, so 40% and 12% is pretty good. Those are the best two. I guess I could have gotten 15%. Those are going to be almost the top two attack percentage boosts that you can get on a gun. So I wanted that, and I have it, and having more MP is good. Even though for her, you know, a lot of her abilities rely on her limit burst gauge and not her MP, it's still useful to have some MP, and maybe someday somebody else will use this gun and they'll want MP. Yeah, especially if you're talking about Oliveira. I know Oliveira's not using a shotgun here, but Oliveira definitely likes to have high MP. Definitely saw somebody post that they had an Oliveira with 10,000 MP. which is kind of ridiculous and awesome to see in action. If you haven't seen that post yet, go check it out because Emily put it there. And yeah, very cool. That said, I think we did answer our question. Oh, actually, I didn't even show you my gun. What am I talking about? How silly of me. There. You can actually see my gun that way. You can see that I have the stats that I'm talking about. I'm not making this up, I promise. Yeah, there you go. So 40%, 12%, 15% MP. So that, to answer your question with a picture, yeah, I think 40% attack, 10% HP, 10% MP is not a bad combination. Maybe not the best, maybe not the most ideal, but you've already got the rare, so that's where you definitely want to be on a gun. So yeah, there you go. Hopefully that clears up some of this. I know there's kind of a lot of talking and a lot of like discussion about like, you know, should you pick this? Should you pick that? Why do you need this? Why do you need that? And maybe you have a different perspective, a different opinion on it. I'd love to hear it. I just feel like the way the game is now, it's not always necessary to have maximum for that relevant stat. And having a little bit of extra HP and MP is not necessarily a bad thing. Depends on the unit though. There's a lot of different factors you want to consider when you are thinking about that, but I do hope that was helpful for you. And if you've got a question you'd like to see in the next video, by all means, drop a comment on the YouTube, drop a comment in the Facebook group. Love to get these kind of videos going so we can talk about them, especially relevant since the item enhancement castle is still available and you can go in and maybe run some of the items and get some good boosts. Good luck to you if you do. If you're still running items, I have kind of been slacking off on it because I've been getting my my butt handed to me in Clash of Wills, and that's kind of been my top priority right now. But yeah, hope you have a good night, a good weekend, and we'll see you in the next video.